Since 2003, this is the Sports Source, East Tennessee's #1 sports talk show.
Presented by Pipe Wrench, and by Junk Be Gone, and by the Garza Law Firm.
With your host, John Pennington. The Sports Source starts now.
Good Sunday morning. Welcome into the Junk Be Gone studios for today's edition of the Sports Source. Appreciate you being with us on this rainy Sunday morning. We got a lot to talk about, but we are going baseball heavy today because the Vols are on the verge. The verge of Omaha, or the verge of disaster. And we'll discuss both possibilities today as they await Game 3 this evening at 6 o'clock against Evansville. We'll also talk a little bit of recruiting versus the portal. We'll talk about some Tennessee football predictions we've seen. Is college football as healthy as we down south like to think it is? We'll show you some numbers that are kind of interesting. And Lane Kiffin's talking about the Vols again. We'll talk about that as well. Let's get into this show. First segment brought to you by our friends at Junk Be Gone. If you're like me, you let stuff, meaning junk, stack up in your garage. Or maybe it's your attic. Or maybe it's just a room that went from a spare room to a hoarder room without you really noticing how it happened. Clean the mess up with one call to Junk Be Gone. Load a driveway dumpster or have their crew do it for you. Then they haul it away. It's simple, it's easy, it's inexpensive. Great deals always available. Junk Be Gone, and a tremendous local company. Local family does it right down to the logo. JunkBegone.biz to learn more. No bigger believer in this company than me. All right. Let's welcome in the panel for today. Right down here, Chuck Cavaleris. He's the only 99.1 The Sports Animal non-entity, because the rest of it, we have Vince Ferrara right here. New guy, Tyler Ivins. Thanks for joining us.
Appreciate you.
And I think you two know each other. You guys on in the afternoons together, Will West right there.
Yeah, never heard of her. I don't know.
Yeah.
Contractually obligated, we have to sit next to each other.
That's it. Very good, very good. All right. Well, on our show, that'll change because we move everybody out. It's musical chairs here. All right. Tennessee gave up 6 runs. And Evansville had the bases loaded when Tennessee closed the door in Game 1. Game 2, Purple Aces scored 10 runs. It's the first time a number 4 seed in the tournament, a regional 4 seed, has gone on to beat the number 1 seed overall. I think other than yesterday, what were they, 0-30 before that happened yesterday?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
The Evansville head coach said it was by far the biggest win in Evansville history. Okay. All that said, the pitching numbers I threw out that you were giving up some runs. You had a bad day at the office yesterday. Vince, let's start with the pitching. How big of a concern is it right now? I think everyone, if you went into the tournament, everyone's feeling good about this team, period. But if you made people choose, you feel better about the bats or the arms. I think everybody says the bats. It's kind of playing out that way, but it's a little worse than what people thought just in these last 2 games. What's up with the arms?
Yeah, I think it's a small sample size because they've really pitched pretty well. Now, when you look at them in 2022, they had dominant arms, they had first round or high draft pick talent. So it's different the way they put it together. You haven't had those elite top of the SEC type of arms. Drew Beam was really the only known commodity coming into the season as their second game starter on the weekend. Yeah. But they've really had starters out of the pen help them get to the finish line. So because they don't have that name value or overwhelming numbers, people have thought, oh, that's going to be a concern. They've made it work. And, yeah, in this regional, they've given up more runs than we've seen. I don't know if it's fatigue or what, but it was very surprising. Their bullpen was 38-5 before that game this season. Wow. You won't find another bullpen with that and an ERA sub of 4 because it's an offensive sport. And that's another part of it. Plus, Evansville is so experienced. It's just kind of part of the deal. They did what Tennessee normally does offensively. Not only 2 out hits, 7 of their 10 runs were with 2 outs. And those can be demoralizing for you.
Right.
Well, 4 of their 6 hits that they had with 2 outs also came with 2 strikes, including the 5th inning where they had 2 strikeouts. They could have gotten the inning out of the inning twice. So that it was just a circumstance between the two of Evansville and Tennessee. Big picture, you expect them to be better. I do think they will be better. I think Tennessee has a little more depth and arms they can go to. But it was very surprising, especially the way that game started, that the bullpen wasn't better.
The interesting thing for me, guys, is the fact that you've got look, your fan base has ballooned since you've gotten good. It's what happens in any sport. If Tennessee got good in rowing, everybody's suddenly following rowing. That doesn't necessarily mean they followed it in the past, so they don't know, oh, this team's good. I think there are people out there who expect, well, you're not supposed to lose a baseball game. It's like, yeah, you lose baseball games. I mean, if the first place team in the NL East plays the last place team in the NL East, that's not an automatic 4-game sweep.
Right.
So bad teams can beat good teams. 4 seeds can beat 1 seeds. I think there's a tendency now to kind of erase what we were saying just 24 hours ago about this team. But they are sitting on the verge here. So your thoughts on where this team is at the moment?
But my concern is not that Evansville is going to homer them. Like yesterday, they hit home runs that I don't expect them to keep hitting today against Tennessee. The small ball aspect of what they're doing, that's not modern baseball. A lot of these kids have never seen that. You saw them pitching-wise work the outside strike zones. And if they're getting that call, Tennessee will have to chase balls, and that's going to end up being a problem. But I do wonder, can they small ball Tennessee to death here? Because modern baseball players aren't used to handling that. And I thought at times Tennessee looked like they struggled to be able to handle that. So how does Tennessee handle the pressure? That's going to be a big question for me. Tennessee still has more talent. But, I mean, yesterday, you're bottom of the ninth, 2 outs, full count, Christian Morris at the plate. Mm-hmm. It's exactly the scenario you play out when you're a child, right?
Yeah.
And then you have that moment, and he goes chasing, and it doesn't work out for him.
You mentioned pressure. Well, the pressure's all on Tennessee right
Oh, yeah,
now, because
absolutely.
Evansville's playing with house money.
Absolutely.
As I'm speaking to the gambler. How much are you concerned that this Tennessee team, I mean, granted, you got new guys there. It's not the same team that lost to Notre Dame 2 years ago, but there is that knowledge that it's out there. How big of a concern is it for you that, okay, if this is a 3-3 game in the 6th inning, they start to remember, oh boy, here we go.
I just think this is a different team, and Tony V has brought that up so many different times about, look, yeah, there's still some players on this team, and Vince, we've talked about this before off the air. Yeah, sure, there's still some rostered players from 2022, but maturity, leadership, it's completely changed since 2024. Now, what kind of goes back to your original question is how many people, if they don't watch Tennessee baseball or they're now starting to get into it because of postseason play, it doesn't help when people are on the radio saying that Evansville's going to be a pushover and that this should be one of those situations, the 16 seed, 4 seed coming out of East Carolina.
I see what you're doing there.
I'm not back talking.
No. You're preventing us from being able to haze you.
No. What's happening here is this.
He fell on his own grenade there because he knew we were going to blow him up.
The concern level is simply this. I think that yesterday they had to do everything. Evansville had to do everything they could to get to today. They shoved all in, every arm, even used their Sunday starter in relief of Saturday to get here. Tennessee's the number 1 overall seed with the second best offense in baseball. I get the Notre Dame tie, and maybe we can get into the Link Jarrett side of things because he happens to be coaching Florida State, who Tennessee would play in Omaha.
We'll get to that.
Point is, I think now Tennessee's too good of a team. I think that right now, I think a lot of these Tennessee players, even if 2022 is in the back of their head, they know they're a better team than
John,
Evansville, and I think we'll see today.
A lot of that doubt creeps in if you fall behind. I mean, in Tennessee, Vince, I've looked at it. And you look at 9 innings, 18 innings, you've gotten the leadoff runner on base 3 times, I think. And that's tough when when your defense can't get off the field and you can't get the first guy on base. That's tough. Tennessee won 9 SC series, right?
Yeah.
That's what I go back to. This team's won a lot of ball games, and I fully expect them to win today.
Well, we'll hold off on the predictions.
All right.
It's later.
Couple things real quick. Will brought up the small ball. What Evansville did in spoiling those 2 strike pitches, especially a couple with 2 outs, is they just put balls in play. And so they weren't trying to hit home runs or anything like that. And that's normally an approach Tennessee has been great at all season long. Situation hitting, yes, all the record home runs, they do that. But they also will go the other way or find the hole when they're playing poolside. So Tennessee just was off in doing that offensively. And then here's another thing, what Chuck was talking about. In game 3s, all right, and we'll get to predictions, Tennessee has been really good in those situations. We'll get to the specifics of that later.
A little concern about Nate Snead's dipping velocity.
Right.
Just a touch. I mean, the Wichita State transfer has been so reliable all year. Yeah. When you see him 93, 94, you're waiting for the juice or the adrenaline to kick in. It's not there.
If the home plate doesn't give them the outside corner like yesterday's did, none of this matters, right? That's another thing is there were some pitches that were awfully questionable, and there was a very generous strike zone in the outside corner that I don't know that today's home plate umpire is going to give Evansville.
Well, it was inconsistent left to right.
So the refs,
so you don't know what you're
so
getting.
the officials stole it.
No, it's still, but it's just a matter of that's baseball, right?
that's Chuck's
small ball
line.
baseball.
You have to adjust.
Small ball baseball is sometimes the strike.
But
zone's
it
going
does
back.
seem like you had a lot of left-handed swings and misses yesterday when I was watching the game.
Tony
to that
Vitello after
point.
the game talked about the fact that it would be a positive. This team would take it as a positive. The comeback they made, they're late.
Yeah. He's talked about that before. It wasn't just.
That was the question. The question was going to be: is that just what coaches say, or do you buy it? That comeback, even though we fell short, that comeback's going to mean the world.
Well, what
I turned
better
into Bill Clinton? It's going to mean the world.
what better example to talk about this than Tennessee? Tennessee hasn't lost back-to-back games since March.
Right.
That Alabama series.
A lot of confidence in this room.
Well,
a
and
lot
don't
of
forget,
confidence in this room.
how did this Evansville team get
one game
here?
season today?
In the region championship game, they're behind 5-2. What, after 6 innings or so? And they score 4 runs to win 6-5. They also beat Wake Forest. I mean, this is a good senior ball club, and they can hit the ball, and you're going to have to play well to beat them.
Yeah, okay. Very good. We'll do a little. I have a feeling where the predictions are going to go, but we'll do predictions later and talk about why we're making them in such a way. When we come back, though, the Vols are still the favorite overall, still the number 1 seed. If they can win in Omaha, where would a national title rank? We'll show you all Tennessee's past national titles in every sport, in case you're wondering how many they've won, where they've won them, when the last one was. Where would a national championship in baseball rank? We got a lot more. We're going to talk about the positives next. We got one of the negatives. Come on back on the Sports Source. Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by A.G. Hines Company, the oldest building materials company in Knoxville. Also the best building materials company in Knoxville. That's how you become the oldest building materials company in Knoxville. Be the best. And they have been for more than 100 years. Absolutely the best team of people you could ever meet. And it starts at the top with the Hines family, Gordon Hines and his kids who are over there. And it just flows on down. It's good people. And I'm proud to send you to A.G. Hines Company. If you've got a project you're starting, do it yourself, home improvement, that's where you start it. Trust me. Get down, check them out. Hines Street, appropriately enough, right in downtown Knoxville. All right. I want to welcome in the final member of today's panel, right down there, Bob Hodge. Bob, thanks for being here.
Positivity is I like to call it. So.
There we go. The cure is here. Bad days happen in baseball, as we discussed. You know, you're not going to run through the regional and the super regional undefeated. So it's important to remember that. If the Vols take care of business today, let's get on the positive. Although I thought I was going to be trying to lift people up with this intro. Don't need to. But if the Vols get through today, make it to Omaha, win the whole darn thing. And as the number 1 seed, they're still the favorite to do it. If they win the whole thing, where does it rank among Tennessee national championships? Let's put this up here and show you. Okay, you've got you would think you've had more. That's good. But, I mean, men's cross country, men's indoor track and field, men's outdoor track and field 3 times, men's swimming and diving, men's football twice, of course, opposed to women's football, but I'm putting men's and women's there. 51 and 98. Women's basketball, 8. Women's indoor track and field, that was your last one. They've won 2, and your last national title here was 15 years ago in 2009, and then women's outdoor track and field, 1981. Tyler, Tennessee wins the national championship in baseball. Where does it rank?
It's a really good question, especially when you take a look at the women's national championships. I don't know if we can put a Tennessee baseball natty this year ahead of any of the undefeated women's basketball seasons. Candace Parker years, the Shamika Holtzclaw years. Football, obviously, 98 is number 1. You can't move that off the top of the mountain. I would say you'd be able to put it in there 4th or 5th between some of those women national championships. And I think that what you would have to go through to be able to accomplish that this year with this offense, being able to kind of right the wrongs, so many consecutive or 3 out of the last 4 years being able to get to the World Series. I think the reason why you're going to be able to squeeze it in there is because of who they're going to play. There's a potential field this year. Florida State. They're no pushover. North Carolina, again. Oregon State, Kentucky, who, remember, Christian Moore had to hit 3 bombs that Sunday game just to get out of Lexington. It's going to be a well-fought field to win a national championship. So depending on how you break down or what particular rosters from the national championship seasons from the Pat Summitt years that you like, it's in there. Doesn't touch football, but it's a nice little peanut butter jelly sandwich with the women's basketball titles.
I think the fact that it would be first also moves it up. So
I think
Bob,
that
what do you have?
elevates it a little bit, and I also think it would be A women's basketball national championship now, I think, and by no means am I insulting anybody. The game has changed. It is so much more competitive. It has so many more eyeballs on it now.
That's the key, yeah.
I think that the baseball national championship would probably come in somewhere behind 98. I think behind 51 too, because I mean, face it, football national championships. I think I could put it no worse than fourth behind the undefeated Pat Summitt, and I might even move it ahead because the women's game has changed. When Pat Summitt was great, there were 4 teams that virtually were going to.
Yeah, it's more competitive now.
Yeah,
it is more competitive.
It's so much more competitive. It is so different. I think a women's championship now means something, and that is not to take anything away from anybody.
When she was winning some of hers, especially early, you had the semifinals and the finals on TV. You couldn't have watched all 64 games or 67 games the way you can now. So there are more eyes on it.
And hey, if you're going to talk about how much more competitive something is, look how competitive baseball is, Vince. I mean, to me, that is the most competitive college sport out there, is college baseball. And one reason is Vanderbilt's been pretty good.
Okay, I'll go. It's really good in this league. I will say, though, it's mainly still a regional. It's a warm weather sport. You don't have a ton of Big Ten. You look at the top 16 seeds. It's ACC and SEC, baby. I mean, it's regional in that sense. But go ahead.
But still, I mean, that's what. But I still, you have to give the respect, I think, to Pat Summitt and what she's done. At first, I thought you could maybe have this if they were to pull this off now, which I don't think they will now, and win the national championship in baseball. I might even rank it number 2nd. But I can see having it in the top 4.
So you don't think they will win the title now?
No.
Okay,
no,
so there goes your positivity. Okay, you're all over the board. I like that.
Bob works.
Vince, number 1.
I'm positive about the sub-regional. I'm not positive about the national championship.
All right, so it's the biggest win. All right, let's go to part of the Vol baseball broadcast team. So it would be the number 1 national championship in school history, right? Now, where does it rank?
Obviously football is at the top of that list, and then I do think I agree with Tyler. It's somewhere in that women's basketball group because Pat Summitt. I don't think as popular as baseball has become, as much of a rock star as Tony Vitello is, you still have a lot of people that, and rightfully so, hold Pat Summitt on just a different level from anybody else. And so I don't think they would allow themselves to put them on that list. So I think. And then also women's basketball for Tennessee is not as popular because they haven't had the success post Pat Summitt. And Tennessee baseball is more popular. So do you look at the history or do you look at the here and now?
And that's where the trouble comes in.
If you go back to Rod Delmonico's first trip to Omaha when everybody was excited, Todd Helton, Bubba Trammell, Ari Dickey, everybody was excited because it was first, but that was also in the middle of the Pat Summitt run there in the mid-90s. And Lady Vols basketball was here compared to baseball. Even though people got really high on it there for that run, it was a Lady Vols town. To me, I would have to put it below, not all of those women's basketball titles, but a lot of them. And that's no knock on baseball. And here's the other thing I want to say. That doesn't mean those athletes in cross country and swimming and everything that won national titles didn't work either or weren't worth anything. We're just talking about in terms of national eyeballs.
And interest.
Eyeballs and interest.
And the great thing about Tennessee is the individuals in a lot of those sports, whether it was the Todd Heltons or anyone else, Willie Gault, and just so many of the individuals that in a lot of those sports, I think they're held in high regard, even if maybe football trumps everything else in the grand.
Hey, but don't sell that 1951 Tennessee football team short. That was a good team. I watched them play.
I had to get in a nice word about track and field. My buddy Gary Lowe would send me a text angry. All right, when we come back, let's put this thing to a vote. We got an interesting question that we've talked about on radio before, and we've been on with Tyler and Will. We've changed the question just a tad, make it a little bit more difficult for you, but we're going to give you Sophie's Choice next. You could only win something in baseball, something in basketball, something in football. We'll tell you what in the next round. You have to do one. You can't take the others. We're going to put it to a vote and let you play along with us, and we're going to debate that next. Come on back, and I'll tell you what we're debating. Welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Oakmont Station. If you're looking for a new place for date night, enjoy Oakmont Station. If you want a new family dinner spot, get everyone to Oakmont Station. A perfect place for a business lunch? Bingo. Oakmont Station. They're good for any kind of meal you're looking for, and you will enjoy it. It's a tremendous menu, craft foods. The craft drinks are really interesting. Some of the cocktails are really fascinating. It's cool. This is going to sound funny, but it's like a big city restaurant. Oakmont Station, but it feels very rustic, very, very down home. It's a great place. Get out there and check them out. They are off Campbell Station Road out in Farragut. You will enjoy it. OakmontStationKnox.com to learn more. All right, let's put up the poll question that kind of sets us off here. If you could have only one, or if you could only have one, which would you choose? That's it. You get one. You have to pick it. A baseball national title, which you've never won before. Or you can end the talk forever of, we've never been to a Final Four. You could pick a basketball Final Four. Or a football SEC title for the first time since 1998, 26 years. So you see, it's like the sports are stair-stepped in terms of popularity, but they're stair-stepped the other way in terms of how far you go. It's a test, you see. It's a test. So some of you already been online. Basketball Final Four is in the lead right now. Wow. What you got to do, take your smartphone, click that little QR code, or you can go to sportsource.tv/polls, and you can vote there. We appreciate you playing along. And now that we're playing along, Chuck,
wow.
If I gave you truth serum, okay, which one are you picking?
I'm going to pick the national championship, and I'll tell you why. Because you've won the last game you played. You are the king of the hill. You're A number one. You can make it to the Final Four. I'm Frank Sinatra now. Yeah, but seriously, you get to the Final Four, are you going to play for the national championship? Maybe not. You win, and the next on my list would be the SEC football title. I mean, that's really big, but then 2 or 3 other teams from the SEC are going to the playoffs with you. What if you lose your next game in the playoffs? Give me the national championship and everything that goes with it.
I don't believe
baseball.
it. I don't believe it. I don't believe you. I don't believe it. I don't believe it.
No, I'm serious.
Okay.
You won your last game you played. Go top that.
30 million people watch the national championship in football. There are 25 million. 2 million watch the national championship
But
in
this
baseball.
is the SEC. Did 30 million watch the SEC? Wouldn't it say football conference title?
Yeah, but here's the thing. But if you win an SEC conference title, you're going to be a top 4 seed in the playoff for football.
And you get a bye. That's why that's the answer is you take, especially in this era. I would say in the past, I would have said a Final Four before we expanded to the 12-team playoff. But since we've done that, you get an automatic top 4 seed, plus you get a bye into the college football playoff. Football matters more. I like baseball.
Well, that's what it should have been the question then.
But it's the other.
Oh, it's my question that was the problem.
I would have said Final Four in basketball before this year. But in baseball, look, you can win a national title in baseball, and it's still a non-revenue sport, right? Like, it's just there's so many more eyeballs. Football matters so much more than everything else. It affects every other sport on campus when football's that level, has that level of success. So for me, the answer is going to be football.
I think mine would be football too, but boy, it would be nice to end forever the you've never made a Final Four talk. Right. That would be way up there. Way up there. That would end so many problems.
Right.
But I think I would go football. But what would you do?
My answer this year would be football. My answer before this year would be football. My answer if you got into a time machine and went back 50 years would be football.
What if we went forward 50 years from now?
Oh my gosh,
It would
Armageddon,
be,
all that
it would
stuff,
be
zombies.
Laser knob or whatever the next game is.
I just think that football is such a dominant thing. And from my perspective, football is the only one that I own season tickets to.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the game that I want to be there.
Well, I guess I look at it,
Polloy.
okay, what if you win the conference title and then lose to Alabama in a rematch by 3 touchdowns?
So what?
Well,
You won the SEC championship.
And think about the amount of revenue and the
But I
return to
think-
things that
yeah.
Tennessee that would come with.
That's all right. Let him
What
make
does
his
No,
case.
I mean, I'm just
Make your
taking a
case.
national championship in baseball,
if
and,
it's a
and
national
all that
championship-
brings. Well, I mean, look
What
at
if
all
it's a
the
national championship in
exposure.
swimming and diving?
Exactly.
You said it's
That's
about
what I
the
was about to
championship.
ask.
What if
Where
it's
do you
swimming and diving?
downgrade it to?
Well, I downgrade it to how many fans are watching, how many people are in the, how many you have people in the stands, how many you're expanding your stadium.
going
You can
smaller
build
on
it
all
to
three of those.
10,000 seats and still. No, I'm taking the national championship in baseball.
Okay.
Football.
Let's see what people are saying out there. National title in baseball, 38%. 39% say basketball Final Four. 22% say an SEC title in football.
My name's Chuck Cavaliers, and I endorse this message.
Yeah, but here's the thing. If we ask that question in August, this answer is going to be football way out
Well,
the
let's
end.
ask it in August.
Well, maybe I will.
I do think, though, it's to me, to some extent, baseball.
You can tell I've had 3 hours sleep. Go ahead.
When I look at baseball, though, with college baseball, I've always said this, and it's a little bit of my problem is with just watching anybody that Tennessee's not playing, is that's the 5th level of baseball, right? College football is the 2nd level of football. College basketball is the 2nd level of college basketball.
Of basketball.
Yeah,
period,
of basketball, period.
NBA, college basketball.
And then you.
I see what you're saying. You got baseball, then
you're
AAA,
AA, high A, rookie league. Then you get to college baseball. So it's just so
I
far down
kind
the
of
list.
disagree with that a little bit, especially the way you look at the draft. I think baseball has moved up in terms. I mean, look at Skeens, the pitcher from LSU, that's now with the Pirates. No, baseball is higher up than that.
But Dylan Cruz, who was the best hitter in the College World Series last year, is still in AA right now.
No, baseball, college baseball higher than low A. I guarantee.
I would say this: half the guys right now in the Super Regional will not play rookie league baseball.
Meanwhile, back to the question, football.
It's a national championship. You win the last game you play. You can't do any better.
Yeah, but if
than
you
that.
say that, we get back to, all right, so it's a national championship in swimming and diving. You take that
Well,
away.
then put that on the list. We'll see how.
No,
it goes.
I'm putting it on. It's on the list right here. It's now 4.
Well,
So
which one does it replace?
Baseball's off, but swimming and diving.
I'm going
If
to
it's
take the SEC title in football.
Well, it's winning the last match you're in. What happened to your argument?
Well, it's up there in terms of sports. Swimming and diving is great. What about track and field? You're going to put track and
what
field
about
up
that?
there?
Here, the reason this is a silly question is because you would want all 3.
Right.
That's the answer is all of them. But anyway, all right. Keep telling us what you think. We want to get your take. Boy, it's now swung to baseball again. You asked that in March or September.
That or everybody's drunk this morning, one or the other.
Wait a second. Vince has got like 9 phones over there. All right. Very good. When we come back, what are we doing when we come back? Oh, I hadn't planned on this next segment, but we're going to do it because they're kind of on the verge of could be bad times too. We just talked about how great would it be if they won? Where would it rank? Now we're going the other way. If Tennessee loses today, where does that rank in terms of Tennessee choke jobs over the last 25 years? Let's discuss that next. Come on back. All right, welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Southeast Termite and Pest Control. Ants, mosquitoes, carpenter bees, termites. I hate them all. They're the critters that annoy you, they sting you, they bite you, they infiltrate your home, or they destroy your home in the case of carpenter bees and termites. There's no reason not to kill them. Southeast Termite and Pest Control can kill them, and that's what I call them for. Hey, I've got something, I want you to kill it. They do a great job. They do a tremendous job. 1, they are always responsive. 2, you got all kinds of plans that you can take care of to keep these guys wiped out. I've done their mosquito plan in the past. Fantastic. Everything they do is family pride. The Haynes family opened this business in 1971. They've been doing it for more than 50 years, and they've been doing it well. I believe in these guys. SoutheastTermite.com to book them for your home or your business, your property. All right, let's take a look. Worst losses since 1999. I didn't go all the way back through time. I just thought, let's look at the last 25 years. All right. The 2022 loss to Notre Dame in the Super Regional. That has to go up there. That was a big upset loss, bad. Oh, the 2001 loss to LSU in the SEC Championship game when you had a shot at going to another BCS title game. It was all there. Everyone was thinking it was Rose Bowl time. That was the other thing that was special. It would be in the Rose Bowl. Now, men's basketball is there. Look, you were only a 4 seed in 1999, but that was a 30-point loss to Steve Alford in what was then Southwest Missouri State. That was awful. In 2018, you were a 3 seed that lost to 11 seed Loyola Chicago. You were without Kyle Alexander, but still. And then 2022, you were a 3 seed that lost to 11 seed Michigan in the NCAA tournament. Bob, where would a Tennessee loss today to Evansville rank on this list? Or do you go past this?
Slight cavaliersing.
Okay.
I will go past the list.
I know you.
I will say that if
learning
you lose
some
to
things.
Evansville today, that it will be the worst loss in UT sports history. Not because of the level of interest in the sport, but simply because you're number one, Evansville came in as nothing, and for you to lose, I mean, I think number one on that list for sure, but I think if you go back through Tennessee sports history, a lot of upsets. A lot of those upsets, though, were when Tennessee, they weren't that great. They weren't ranked number one.
Yeah.
The only thing I can come up with, Memphis beating Peyton Manning.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's the only thing. But other than that,
96.
Yep.
yeah, that's outside of your window. So to me, it would be there possibly the number one worst loss in your athletic department history.
Well, that's grim. Okay.
Well, we've
Where are we
already.
going? Where does it rank? I mean, do you guys go off this 25, or would it be in this 25?
We've already touched on one very disturbing stat to me, is that the number one overall seed versus the number 16 had been 30-0 until the game yesterday.
And that's just one game.
And that's just one game. I mean, that's not the series. That's one
lose
game.
the whole series to them.
So then, if you lose back to back, and I think it would be one of, and I think you're going to agree. I don't want to steal your thunder.
Number two.
It would be one of the biggest upsets, not just in UT, but the history of college baseball.
So they were the 4 seed in the 16 regional at East Carolina. So to me, they're the 64th of the 64.
Yeah, last team in, technically.
It would be really tough for me to look at a team who lost 10 and 12 at one point in time this year, who came into Lindsey Nelson Stadium and won back-to-back, or beat Tennessee back-to-back games as the number one overall seed. But boys, I was sitting there with 3 of my best friends who had roses in their mouth in 2001 in Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah.
And I watched Matty Mock go, he's going to run the football. And Tennessee was just like, I don't know, what's going on?
We'll run the Prowler.
Boys,
Prowler will stop it.
Yeah, it's 2001 because, look, football is football. You could have gone to the Rose Bowl, the granddaddy. Nobody was allowed to be there except Big Ten and the Pac-10, Pac-12. Look, I know it's football because not to be a prisoner of the moment, though, John, boys, they lose today. And look, you know, I'm a guy chained to Vegas. It will be the largest upset in NCAA baseball financial history if it happens.
That's what VSiN said earlier.
VSiN on the drive-in,
Network,
VSiN Network.
And here's the only reason I
Tennessee's
disagree.
minus
Here's the only
560
reason I disagree with that is because at least LSU won. We didn't know it at the time, but you had maybe the greatest coach in history.
Sure.
2, you were an SEC team.
Right.
And you were a good enough SEC team to make it to the SEC championship game.
That's who you lost to, you mean? Yeah.
So to me, that, yes, it was a huge upset. It was horrible in the biggest sport that you got on your campus.
Right.
But it wasn't Evansville.
This would be
Well,
the equivalent.
I think we're selling
Let me
elements
get a
of
word
short.
in on my own
All
show
right,
for a
all
second.
right, all
This would be the equivalent, and then you can jump in. This would be the equivalent of Maryland, Baltimore County,
Yeah.
who beat Virginia,
Yeah.
beating them twice in a row.
Well,
And taking a 2 out of 3 series. That's what this would be the equivalent of.
And Farley
It'd be the
Dickinson.
number one versus a 64.
And Farley Dickinson,
Yeah, who did Farley Dickinson knock out? Purdue, that's right.
Yeah.
I think the Virginia thing was more
Well,
like
I
it because
do- I
Virginia
do
was
too.
number one in the country when
I
they did
do
it.
too.
And the number one overall seed.
Right.
But
So that was 64 versus 1, basically. Chuck, go.
I just think we're selling this Evansville team short. They've already gone.
Here we go.
They've already gone on the road and won a region when they're behind 4-2 in the championship game, the elimination
You're
game.
right.
They
It'd be a
scored
good
4
loss.
runs to get here.
It'd be a proud
Here's
loss.
the problem. There are a lot of people out here who are comparing this Evansville team to what Notre Dame was back in 2022 because they all have degrees and they're all 24 and 25 years of age. That Notre Dame team had no business coming to Knoxville. We can argue about kicking dead horses, whatever, from 22. Notre Dame should have been hosting their own super regional. They were a better team. They were a good team. They came in. Look, you can call it a choke job because of how great that Tennessee baseball team was. Let's give Notre Dame their flowers. They were very
We're
good.
getting way
that
off
year.
topic now. All right. I would say this, though, in terms of the bad thing for if this one counts as a loss, it's amplified by that Notre Dame.
Yes.
That's the
True.
problem.
Yeah.
It's too quick
And-
on the tails of you just
Very fair.
did this.
Right.
You just were number one,
And-
and then you didn't get to the World Series, and you lost at home.
And
that makes it worse because it's twice in 3 years.
And you know that thought was going through the minds of a lot of fans in the stands too yesterday.
My concern is it going through the thoughts of any of the players?
Tony
That's my
Vitello
concern.
said yesterday, It's for everybody. Yeah, there are going to be some people on social. I'm paraphrasing. There are going to be some people on social media spitting venom. I'll leave that to them. We'll handle what we need to handle. We'll let them do that. Which tells me is that Tony V may be tipping off, saying, "I know some people are wanting to bring back the eerie nightmares of 22. Don't do that."
Yeah. Maybe I would. In terms of
if
I were a fan and I've now got a baseball team to pull
Sure.
for, I think I'd give them a little more slack before I started spitting venom.
Exactly. Exactly.
I mean, all right. When we come back after yesterday's loss, let's spit some venom. Let's bring Vince back out here. When we come back after yesterday's loss, I got a text from a buddy comparing Tony Vitello to Rick Barnes in terms of postseason. I thought maybe it's a little soon. We'll see if anybody here agrees with that. Is that going to start up? If the Vols lose today, are we going to start hearing Tony can't get it done in June? Come on back on the Sports Source. Welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Madisonville Marine. Man, they've got every kind of boat you could possibly want. If you want pontoons, if you for the whole family, you want a deck boat. You're into the skiing thing. You may be an outdoorsman like Bob Hodge. You may want a John boat. You may want the G3 Sportsman. Go down to Madisonville Marine. This is the beauty of it. They don't just want to sell you a boat. They want to sell you the right boat for you. They want to make sure you're happy. And if you come in and say, I want this, my wife wants this, and the kids would like that, they can help find the boat that is the right mesh for everyone. Madisonville Marine is a special place, special people. Get down to see them at Highway 411 North in Madisonville. Joe Special, that's his name. That's why they're special people and a special team. Joe Special does a great job down there, and so does his group. Get down there and see them this week, Madisonville Marine. All right, let's remind you of our poll. I want to see what the results are right now. There you go. Vince is happy. Baseball national title. Right now, the Tennessee fans watching, they say, you could give me a basketball Final Four, you could give me a football SEC title. No! I want a baseball national championship. That's got to make you feel good.
Yeah, would be cool.
All right, there you go. So keep voting, keep telling us.
All right, basketball Final Four. I'm going to get in there right now.
Okay. Tony Vitello has done an unbelievable job at Tennessee. Last week, we were talking, wow, which is the more incredible hire, Rick Barnes or Tony Vitello? You could go back years, and we were comparing how spectacular they are and how well they've done. And then they got compared. A buddy of mine sent me a text after the game yesterday. It was basically, the gist was, Rick Barnes has March, Tony Vitello has June. I told him, maybe a little early for that. Rick Barnes' resume is a little bit longer than Tony Vitello. But I will ask this. If Tennessee loses today, Will, is that kind of talk now going to start percolating, or is it still too soon? Do you not think Vol fans will go there?
No, it's going there. It's absolutely going to happen. Yes, especially because so here's the thing: when you see
2 out of 3 years, I kind of agree with him. It's not fair. But
emotion, it's not fair, but it is what's going to happen. When you see quick emotion in a sport that people didn't pay a ton of attention to, right? Like even 5 years ago. People aren't particularly educated on it, and so what happens is it's all emotion right now. Yeah, absolutely. People are going to crush, whether they should or not, people are going to crush Tony Vitello if they lose this game to Evansville today. Like, it's coming now, and he's got to deal with it. He's getting paid a lot of money to deal with it. It comes with the territory. Probably not fair, but it's going to happen.
I think he's smart enough to know in his field, the money he's making, big program, the Tennessee fan base especially is passionate. I think he would know that, okay, you lose, you're going to hear some of it. I agree with Will. I think he'll hear some. I don't think it's going to be the masses, but I think next year you'll have people saying, well, he better do some damage in the tournament if they lose today. That's my
4 straight years into the Super Regionals. Would you not equate that to the Sweet 16 level?
How many people that are following baseball right now,
I
all
hear
these
you.
bandwagon people, know that.
I hear you.
And I'm not talking. I'm not downplaying our audience. I'm just saying there are a lot of people who weren't following college baseball 5 years ago.
Well, then I would like to say to those people who are on the bandwagon that believe that after this, that what he has done in the last 48 months, if this equates him to second-round Rick, they don't know what they're talking about.
Right.
I mean, this is a guy right now
Rocking chair Tony,
who's bringing. That's what I was about to say. What's the vernacular with this? I think right now Tennessee baseball fans, they're hungry. They hear all the juice that's coming from the national talking heads, and they hear people on local radio saying how excellent this Tennessee team is. I think right now, shortcomings would be difficult. I can understand why it would be approaching this year because of this Evansville team, but there's still success there. They're going through stretches that a lot of SEC programs have never seen.
I don't think anybody's going to be calling for his head or saying that there's not success. I just think you'll have people saying, Okay, you're great in the regular season. When are we going to see it in Omaha? I think that's what.
Well,
you're
so
gonna
here's
hear.
what you got to put
Chuck,
it
do
in
you agree?
perspective.
Do you disagree?
John.
You don't think they'll do that?
Omaha, I think there'll be some, but I don't think he'll be crushed by any means. There'll be some, but I think the intelligent baseball fans appreciate what they got here. And here's the other thing.
The intelligent baseball
The intelligent
fans will.
baseball
Both of
fans
them
will. when you're the number one overall seed, you set yourself up for Omaha or bust, don't you? I mean, 6 out of 8 as a rule. 6 out of the 8 number one seeds tend to make it to Omaha.
Yeah.
But that is the equivalent of the Elite 8 in NCAA basketball tournament. How many times does Tennessee get to the Elite 8 in basketball?
Does he start getting guff over the whole postseason thing if he doesn't go far in Omaha?
He doesn't start getting guff. I bet you if you look on social media, it's already there.
Yeah.
I mean, just like you
Well,
got the
yeah,
text.
I got it, but in the text of it, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, my guy was kind of teasing, but he was teasing, saying this is going to be out there.
Let's be honest. There's a football mentality to every other sport that you see. It's present. So I'm sure some people's minds have already gone there. It, of course, is not fair. It's not accurate. Plus, kind of to Chuck's point, look, the last 4 years, if they don't make it, they're either getting to the Super Regionals, which is the Sweet 16, or the College World Series, which is the Elite 8 or Final Four. And the times they made it to the College World Series, they outperformed their rankings or where you would project them to. That's something that wasn't happening necessarily in basketball. So the resume of Barnes, the short-term, big-time success, 50-plus wins in 3 of the last 4 years, it's not fair, but I'm sure it's already.
I would also go ahead very quickly.
I just remember the second time Bruce Pearl lost the Sweet 16, we took multiple phone calls that next Monday. Jarrett Green got us the Sweet 16. What would we need Bruce Pearl for?
Well,
I lived through that.
I think what's going to happen is, if you look at what this program's doing, I see no reason to think, when you look at how Vitello recruits, look at how well he coaches the guys he gets here. I mean, he melds the chemistry pretty good together. So I think if you look at that, there's no signs that this is a flash in the pan for the program. You get the feeling, some of those Rod Delmonico teams, it's like, well, they got a really good group, and then it's going to go, and what's going to happen then? Yeah. And now they got you get a feeling Tennessee's kind of going to be in this realm for a while. Sometimes it takes a while to get the breakthrough. And usually those teams who are there for a while do eventually break through. Gonzaga is about the only one that's a school that got to the top and never has broken through. Most of these schools break through. So if Vitello doesn't do it this year, I would be very slow with my thumbs on Twitter. I think you're going to be in this realm for a long time to come.
2 other quick things. The SEC in baseball is the elite.
Yep.
Now, it's the ACC, close to them now, but they have been consistently, he's been winning in the best. We haven't looked at SEC basketball that way. So the regular season isn't on the same level. And the other thing is, yes, we're talking about people's reactions. It's not the majority of the fan base.
Right.
It is a vocal, loud one, but it's by any means not the majority.
Well, Twitter's never the voice of anything.
Absolutely.
It's true.
But that's all we go by. The whole world revolves around it, even though it's like 20% and they're angry jackasses. All right. When we come back, let's switch over to football for a while. Is college football, we got Vol predictions coming up, we got recruiting, but next, interesting numbers. We'll see how people take it. Glass half full, glass half empty. We'll have Bob out for the half empty portion. Is college football as healthy as people think around here? Come on back. Welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Daniel Hood Roofing. When Daniel was a player at UT, he loved the sound of Fight Vols Fight. Now, as an award-winning roofer, he's still fighting. He's fighting the elements, and he's fighting for your insurance claim. Did he win that fight for you, Bob?
Big.
There you go. Visit DanielHoodRoofing.com today. Read the testimonials. There's a lot more than what Bob just said here. And you'll find a lot of people that are very happy they went with Daniel Hood Roofing. DanielHoodRoofing.com to learn more.
I went into that fight. I was Evansville, but I won.
There you go. That's how good Daniel was. All right. Down south, we tend to think that college football is king. And when compared to other college sports, it is. Let's take a look here at championship. These are the viewers for the last major sports, their last championship. So the football, the Michigan-Washington playoff final in 2024 drew 25.1 million. Okay, that drops down. The women's basketball championship drew 18.7. I would calm down on that number. That's the Caitlin Clark effect. I mean, if you go back and look at women's basketball pre-Caitlin Clark, it was about 3 million. It's grown exponentially. with people watching her. We'll see if they can carry over any of that. 18 million is fantastic, though, for a year. Men's basketball, 14.8 million is how many watched. The men's baseball final series, not the whole College World Series. The College World Series last year, I think it was a record with 1.6 million was the average for all the games. 2.8 for the final series last year. And the women's softball series that just ended, Oklahoma winning yet again, beating Texas, that drew 2 million. So you see the numbers there. College football far ahead of anything else. And again, women's basketball, that is an inflated number. If they do it again, I'll applaud them and we'll talk about it. But usually it's not near that. It's usually 10 million from men to men's basketball, men's football to men's basketball, and then to women's basketball. Anyway, let's take a look at the last 10 title games for football, though. Don't worry about the games on the left. I know it's hard to read. But the blue line's all you need to see. The number at the top was 10 years ago. Now, you got 25.1, Michigan and Washington. That's at the bottom. That's the most recent. But that trend is going in the wrong direction. To me, it's not going in the right direction. Now, you had a nice bump there this last year. Maybe that's a turnaround. But I was surprised to see this. In fact, 25.1 million people watched the finals of the playoff this past year. 26.1 million watched Tennessee beat Florida State in 1999. You had more people 25 years ago watching it. So my question, this is glass half full or glass half empty. College football is still making big money. They're still number one in terms of all the college sports. But it's no longer growing in terms of just viewerships getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So, half full, half empty. Where are you? Is college football as healthy as we think? Or do you look at it and say, I'd be a little concerned that you're going this way instead of that way?
I think it's half full because everything else not named the NFL is down, right? So if you can maintain the
Except
same
for
audience.
women's basketball, but that's a short.
Yeah, that is a 1 year sample size with Caitlin Clark, right? But I look at everything else that's there. Every nationally televised MLB game is the lowest one ever that's been nationally televised. Yeah. You're seeing the NBA, the ratings for the NBA this past game one, it was about half of what it was 7 years ago. But just fewer people are watching television. You have more options that are out there. The NFL is the one thing that's completely and totally recession-proof, it seems. But for college football to stay in the ballpark of where they were, I think that's glass half full.
Yeah, softball and baseball, their numbers, they constantly have record numbers. But we're talking about a lot of room for growth because they're not close to football and basketball. I would love to see what the streaming totality numbers are now because it is a whole new world. How many of those numbers are not there?
Well, it depends on what source they're using, but a lot of these sources roll all that stuff together.
Okay. All right. So if that's the case, then, yeah, it's come down some. Probably all the factors and negatives in college football have impacted it. Plus, the market is flooded. There's so much more. It was such a bigger event there where maybe you hadn't seen it. It was a bigger deal. Now you can see a lot of these teams all the time, and maybe a little bit of SEC fatigue. Maybe that's why you had a little bit of a bounce back this past year because of the SEC factor.
It's interesting. What are you doing? What do you think?
Oh, it's half empty. And here's the reason why.
I don't know if you're just playing the role now or if that's...
Go to Neyland Stadium and look at the crowd. It's an older crowd. I think the younger people don't go to games. I think the younger people don't watch games. I think, okay, I'm going to pay attention to the score. And if that trend continues, the guys like me, the guys like us, we're going to age out. And then does your number keep shrinking? So I think people still pay attention. I think there's still interest. But I think the person sitting down and saying, I'm going to be on television or I'm going to sit there and watch my TV for 3 hours. No, I'm going to go do something else and I'm going to keep up a little bit.
Being an outside media guy looking at it, I'm saying it's half full. You're still, for all the reasons you said, you're still making money. You're still number one among college sports. You just signed a mega contract. That's great. If I'm inside it, then I'm agreeing with you. If I'm in college football, and I think any good business person looks at their own business and says, you're not good enough. What's the next trap door to open? I just think that's how you run it. And I think if I'm in college football, I'm noticing that trend. I'm like, okay. And I am noticing, okay, it's harder to get people to come into stadiums now. I mean, I recently read, I believe it was a Premier League soccer team, that their marketing group was focused on TikTok because they're finding most of their young fans don't necessarily watch whole games. They go to TikTok and watch the highlights, the scores, that kind of thing. So there is something real about that young people are consuming it in a different way, and a lot of people are consuming it simply as a gambling fix. As opposed to, I'm going to sit down and watch the game. I don't know how many people watched Red Zone. I hated Red Zone. I've got my team. A lot of people love it.
I do.
Yeah. I don't want to bounce around. I want my deal. But I think the red zonification of sports and having it here means I don't necessarily watch this game the way I used to, locked in. Nope. I'm seeing what else is going on. What's my fantasy team? How much money do I have on this game? So anyway, I think I can go either way on it, but I'm going to go half empty. Look at it as a business. If I'm in college football, I'm always trying to figure out how can we fix things.
The other side of it, I think Vince tapped on something. I don't know that it's SEC fatigue, but I do think there is in the South, we are big SEC fans. I don't know if anyone in the rest of the country cares about the SEC at all, because you see non-SEC title games have larger audiences.
Okay, we got to catch a break. When we come back, one power ranking has Tennessee 16th in the nation. It's a little lower than most. One has them number 9. That's a little higher than most. If you had to pick one, which way are you going? We'll ask our resident gamblers here to give their take when we come back. Welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Safety Systems. Home automation, security systems, fire and life safety systems, they do it all at Safety Systems, and they do it well. If you're building a new office, new restaurant, new condo, and you have to install and then check all those fire systems on a regular basis, they not only install all this stuff, they do the checks as well. Safety Systems, one-stop shopping if you are building a business that needs the fire systems that are put in and checked regularly. They do it all. Call VFL J.J. Surlis and his team at Safety Systems. Okay, let's take a look at the poll results. There we go. Baseball national title is what Vol fans want. More so than an SEC football title, which ranks second, and that's an SEC title, not the national title. And more so than basketball final. Basketball Final Four, dead last on the list.
That's a vote for Chuck Cavaleris, and I endorse this message.
That was good campaigning, Chuck. Good job. Good campaigning. All right, here's my question. We've got to be kind of quick. Let's put this up there. On the left, Stuart Mandel of The Athletic listed his top 25 coming out of spring. And what I included here was anybody that's on Tennessee's schedule or anybody in the SEC. So it's Georgia 1, Texas 3, Alabama 4, Ole Miss 6, Missouri 12, Tennessee 16th. He's got them at 16. Then he's got Oklahoma, NC State also ranked, and then A&M from the SEC. ESPN's formula, their football power index, which I have made fun of on this show for years.
As you should.
It has Georgia number 1, Texas 3, Alabama 5, Oklahoma 8, way up there at 8, Tennessee 9. 9, that's about as high as I've seen the Volunteers, and 16 is about as low as I've seen the Volunteers. So if Chuck Cavaleris and Tyler Ivins had to put all their gambling money onto, all right, we're playing, what is it, roulette? Yeah, you have to put all your money onto, black 16 or red 9. Where's your money going?
Black 16.
Correct.
And I'll tell you one reason why, because there's so many teams in the SEC that are going to be ranked above you in my estimation. I've seen Tennessee like maybe 6th, 7th, kind of in the SEC rankings. It's tough to be number 9 in the country if you're 6 or 7 in your league. So I would put it in, I think the composite kind of consensus is in that 12 to 15 kind of range.
I think it kind of goes hand in hand, too. Not that it's the be-all, end-all, but if you look at kind of the quarterback rankings in the SEC this year, it seems Nico would fall in that 6 range, 7 range. Tennessee, coincidentally, the 6th or 7th best team in the conference. It doesn't help, and Will and I talk about this often, just how it seems like easy Ole Miss and Missouri's schedule is going to be this year. So if you knock out the teams that we expect to be there, Bama, Georgia, Texas, and then find out whoever that 4 team is between the Rebels and the Tigers, yeah, if you asked me to put money, we'd go in hand-to-hand. 16 would be exactly where I'd be at.
Well,
maybe 15 if we're pushing it.
Well, and I think it's always important to remember how easy a schedule is. Like, for example, if you're Tennessee baseball, looking at how easy it's going to be against Evansville. No, I'm just kidding. I agree with you on the Ole Miss Missouri thing. One of those is going to have. I think one of those is going to stumble. My guess is it's Missouri. But it is if you finish 16th, that's the low I've seen. If you finish 16th in Nico's first year,
bingo.
I don't think that's a bad year at all. Yeah, and if you're finished 9th, then I want to see the parade go right outside the WATE studio. All right, Chuck, thanks for being in here. You fought hard today. You win. Today's winner is Chuck. The big winner.
Baby.
Chucky wins. All right. When we come back, how important is high school recruiting in the transfer portal era? I have a shocking stat for you next. I threw it out here, and these guys said, wow. So let's see if you say wow. Come on back. Back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Games and Things. When Games and Things talks about life being fun, what do they mean? Well, Darts are fun. Pool table's fun. Arcade games, foosball, air hockey, table tennis, shuffleboard, jukeboxes, card tables, all fun. And I could go on because Games and Things has all that and more. When they say because life should be fun, that means they make your home fun. Fun for you, fun for your kids, fun for your neighbors. Get down, check out their showroom at the corner of Kingston Pike and Lovell Road. You will be most impressed. Games and Things. All right. The transfer portal has certainly changed football, but it's also lessened the importance of high school recruiting. Saw an interesting stat this week from The Athletic. If you take the top 100 ranked players from 24/7 Sports the last 2 years, so the top 100 2 years ago, the top 100 last year in terms of recruiting classes, 56 players from those top 100s have already transferred. In other words, 28% of the guys who sign out of those top 100 players, the blue chips that everybody's dying for, oh, whose hat's he going to pick? 28% of those guys are gone in 2 years. Another poll this week showed that people aren't paying as much attention to recruiting. They're paying more attention to the portal. So my question is, how much has the importance of high school recruiting been impacted? Some of you can, well, I'm just going to shut up. Go. What do you think?
I think it still matters greatly because if you look at who actually wins championships, they are teams that don't do a lot in the transfer portal. Look at the teams that don't. They do a lot of things in the transfer portal. Ole Miss, people like that. Louisville did a solid job, and they had a lot of kids come from the transfer portal. That's just not what's winning football yet in college. So I think it still matters, but I think that maybe even it matters more because you have to recruit over the kids that you have because 1 in 4 at best are probably going to transfer somewhere else.
We got to speed it up. Go.
I'm going to go if it used to be 100% of the game, recruiting now is probably 85% of the game, and trending downward. But I still think it's very, very important.
To build the base,
Yes.
kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, to sustain the success, and that's the key. You have to have the high school as your base, and then the accent of the transfer portal. It clips a lot of kids that don't get signed, but you better hit a higher percentage of it to have that base, so that adds the value of it with those guys.
I'm the only one here who's allowed to cavalier his own question. And I will simply say it's different program to program. Obviously, it's impacted the high school recruiting huge if you're Ole Miss. But they don't need it. They're just constantly living in the portal. I do think, though, that it's a bigger switch than I ever anticipated. For years, I thought these kids deserve a chance to make up their own minds and leave, and now they've got it to where, you're standing on the sideline, your team's behind, it's halftime. I'm going over there. I'm transferring to the other team at halftime. I just think that it's too much, and when you get 56 out of the top 200 players over a 2-year span, I just don't see how that's sustainable. I don't think a program like Ole Miss, and kudos to Kiffin, who we may mention in the next segment. Kudos to Kiffin in doing it as well as he has so far. I just don't think it's sustainable. Sooner or later, you're going to have the wrong guys coming. You're going to have what happened at Arkansas in basketball this past year, when the chemistry all goes sideways and the team goes to hell and the coach gets smoked.
It happened at A&M 2 years ago.
Yes, it did. Great
and
point.
last year.
All right. When we come back, will the Vols beat Evansville? Come on back. You can watch Vince predict the Purple Aces to be victorious, I'm sure. We'll ask everybody who's going to win. We'll also talk about Florida State, who Tennessee would play in Omaha in their first game. And we told you this was coming last week. The NCAA okayed it this week. Let's talk about logos on fields. Lane Kiffin did. So we'll tell you what he said about Tennessee's logo on a field. Come on back. Welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Paper Be Gone. There's nothing more important than protecting your information, your data. Every day, businesses get info stolen, people get their lives hacked, and it's absolute hell to get that stuff fixed. Be smart with your old records, your old bank statements, your old credit card statements. Trust Paper Be Gone to protect your business, whether it's shedding documents or destroying hard drives. And if you've got a medical practice, they can even effectively get rid of x-rays, and then that has to be done in a special way. They do that as well. Turn to Paper Be Gone. Trust Paper Be Gone. Learn more at paperbegone.com. All right, we told you this a couple of weeks ago, or actually last week, that this was coming. The NCAA Playing Rules Oversight Panel approved the recommendation from the Football Rules Committee. The rule now allows for corporate advertisements to be placed in 3 spots on the field. A single ad centered right on the 50, along with no more than 2 smaller flanking advertisements elsewhere on the field. It can be done on a game-by-game basis or it can be done for the entire season. And I had an opportunity. Here's what that would look like. I don't have a problem with this. You know, come on, local company, take that T out of there. Everybody gonna be okay with that? Lane Kiffin put out a suggestion. Somebody said, "What should they put as? Who should be the logo at midfield for the Neyland Stadium?" And Lane Kiffin said, "French's mustard." French's mustard, since they threw that at him. But we talked about it a little last week. Just the idea of hopefully you're talking 2 logos, more than likely Food City. Or Dish Network, somewhere at about the 30, 20, you know where they're putting the players, and they have the players back, and they put that there on the field, the 27 or whatever. It'll probably be that. I can't imagine they'd ever replace the Power T at midfield, but some schools will. And I'm guessing we all hate this idea.
I don't have a problem with it whatsoever. I see it in
I hate you
everything
for
else
not
I
hating
do.
it.
Also, remember this. You may not like it, but if your school isn't doing this, they are falling behind. Yep. Because college football now has to they sing for their supper the way they've never had to.
Yeah, you're going to have logos on the uniforms and everything else, but that doesn't mean I don't have to hate it.
Fair enough.
Okay, Chuck, why don't you walk in here? We're going to
sir.
talk about the Evansville game today. I want the picks to be quick because I don't expect anybody, aside from Vince, to take the purple aces. But, Chuck, you had an interesting number.
Yes,
And
it's actually dropped a little. I have it at the Vols minus 4.5, and the over and under also has dropped to 15.5, which seems high to me.
When was this? I mean, who was this? Whose system is this?
We got it on FanDuel.
Okay, FanDuel. 4.5, 15.5. Tyler, you're looking at it.
Tyler's making bets.
You've already got money on this.
I actually did it when I was behind the camera. Tennis. I said yesterday I thought the Vols would win this game by 6. It initially started at 5. It's dropped to 4.5. This is spot on where I thought it would be. Tennessee 10, Evansville 4.
Okay, so he takes Tennessee by 4.5. What do you do?
I'll go Tennessee 12, Evansville 7.
Okay, so now I got to do math.
Cash
Yeah,
it.
that's fine.
Yeah, that's a
cover. 4.5.
That's a cover.
Cash
I'll
it.
take a cover under the total.
You can't say you're the broadcaster.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's called professional.
I'll take
But
Tennessee.
he told me off screen.
I'll take Tennessee and say it won't be a cover just to be different.
What was the final score yesterday? 10-8. Let's just let that roll again. 10-8 Vols.
Okay. Then the last thing, if the Vols get by Evansville at 6 o'clock today, they'll face a Florida State team, and we talked about pitching earlier. They'll face a Florida State team that scored 34 runs in their last 2 games. Now, it's important to remember, we don't know what their weak. I haven't watched them. Vince, you may know. Tyler watches every game known to man. I don't watch Florida State baseball, so I don't know what their weaknesses are. But if your pitching's been a little shaky against Evansville, and now you got Florida State who's hitting the ball well at the moment, that would be a little persnickety. Plus, as Tyler pointed out before, might have done that on the show, the coach at Florida State now was the coach at Notre Dame who beat you a couple of years ago. Tell me about Florida State, if that's a matchup for the Vols.
Yeah, Florida State can swing the bat. Link Jarrett has resurrected that program after they had a long time had made the tournament, did not, and went through a dry spell there. He brought him back. But they gave up some runs too. They gave up a bunch of runs yesterday. They gave up 19, something like that to Duke in the ACC championship game. So they're another team that can swing the bats, but then they have some rough moments on the mound also. So
Not a lot of home runs in Omaha, so if they live on the long ball, it may not matter how many runs they like to score.
Young lefty who starts Fridays, but their 3, 4, 5 in the middle of their lineup is probably as good as anybody in college baseball. They can match.
Can I say a quick thing on Xander Sechrist? Xander Sechrist, last 16 and 2/3 innings, last 3 starts, 3 on runs allowed, including 2 shutouts. So pitching depth favors Tennessee today.
Big game, though. The fact that we're talking about early in the set, what is a national title worth? Where would that rank? All the way to, would this be the biggest loss in UT history? There's a lot riding on this one. I mean, it's a very interesting game.
Yeah.
But it's cool that it's there, right? With college baseball, I mean, we're all from here. I would have never thought, never in a million years. So I think it's awesome that
It
Tennessee
does fill
baseball's
the gap
there.
between basketball and football.
It does.
Yeah, with everything that's happened to me, this is a game, seize the momentum, can keep it. And whichever
jump
team
on 'em.
whichever team can do that, it's going to be tough to beat.
I don't want to let any mental ghosts hover around in there. Get on them and get on
Exactly.
early. Okay.
Exactly.
Thanks to everybody here. Tyler, welcome to our massive crew here. We
See you
appreciate
boys in
having you.
Omaha.
Okay.
No, you'll see us
I got
tomorrow.
even money with Tyler.
Thank you.